back to the Halo series. My name is Douglas Brown, CEO at Halo Consulting. Today we are joined by Allie Miller, CEO and founder at the Ethical Aesthete. If you're new to this event, Halo hosts monthly virtual roundtable events covering current trends in the HR, tech, and DEI space. Don't forget to check out the Halo mini-series, where we hear from executives taking a deep dive into a multi-part series discussing what is keeping them up at night. If you enjoyed this content, hit that like and subscribe button. Be sure to visit Halo's LinkedIn page to subscribe to the Halo Content Hub, which summarizes current market trends and recaps past events. That link can be found in the description. Throughout our session, we'll cover rule breaking responsibly and authentic executive style. Before we kick off the questions, let's get started with you, Allie. Can you share with our audience the company you founded, the Ethical Aesthete, how it builds upon your previous professional experience?
Oh, yes, sure. Thank you so much for having me, Doug. It's really fun to get to do this with you. And thanks for asking about my business. It is called The Ethical Aesthete. And we are helping people, I shouldn't say we, I am helping people curate wardrobes that really truly express their whole selves, including their values. I really want my clients to feel great in what they're wearing, but also really great about how they got those clothes. And I have been really thrilled so far that all of my clients have been willing to go second market with me. And when I say second market, I mean vintage, consignment, resale. And, they've been doing that even if they've only ever shopped retail before, which is so unexpected and fun. And it is a really good time for that. And my experience, there has never been more inventory of luxury workwear in the resale market. It's actually a really good time for that. There has never been more inventory of luxury workwear resale. And it's just waiting for someone to make a smart investment in themselves. I do keep hearing from clients that it is easier than they thought it would be, that they're going to keep shopping this way, that getting dressed in the morning is easier, more fun, is more efficient. And all of that is music to my ears because I would really love to teach myself out of a job. And I was I was a little conflicted about whether or not I would talk about this because I actually don't make a big deal out of it in my marketing copy, about why second market shopping is important to me specifically. I suppose I do that because I do know that considering the moral implications of our choices as consumers can be really truly exhausting, if not alienating. And it is my pleasure if I'm making what I believe to be a more fiscally and ethically sound choice, actually the easiest, most fun choice as well. So, it's okay if people want to hire me without these same considerations that I have, but between you and me, because this isn't being recorded, right? Uh, I do have strong principles behind my business that are personal to me, and I will tell you about them. So 85% of textiles in the US end up in a landfill. Gasp. I mean, that is really horrifying, right? And whether you are concerned about all of that fast fashion waste sitting in a landfill, or you're concerned about factory conditions for the garment workers, or farm conditions, or any other number of things, getting your clothes this way will feel better to you. And you actually do not have to silence that compassionate voice inside you in order to buy clothes. That part of you is beautiful and also deserves to be dressed. So, the bottom line is that you really can feel amazing in your clothes, feel more like yourself than you ever have before, and do that in a way that is easy on your time and your conscience and even your budget. So that is what the ethical aesthete is endeavoring to do for people, and I think based on the feedback, we're succeeding. And it definitely does connect to my former career. I was building relationships, training and empowering people, telling stories, directing large projects in the theater. And then I was doing most of those same things as a nonprofit executive, with perhaps the addition of building revenue streams. And, as I hope you can tell, my work is still very much mission forward, and I am still doing all of those things. Now I build relationships with clients. I help them tell their story through clothes, and I empower them to then, do that without me too. And, driving revenue is also an important thing for a business owner to do. So I'm glad I had experience with that.
Thanks for sharing, Allie. Really a truly inspiring story.
Well, for mentioning this topic. It is a difficult one to navigate in my business. It's a dance. None of us get dressed in a vacuum. So I think self awareness and intention are keys here. I think it's naive and unhelpful for me to pretend that this dynamic does not exist. And I think it is really important that I am listening deeply to my clients about what makes them feel their best, even though we might know that there's some noise around this. Um, my approach fundamentally is about harmony. It's not about like correcting, right? You'll never hear me say an apple shape or a banana, or you're a kiwi or anything like that. I mean, who wants to be a banana? And I do draw on my previous experience and observations, having been an executive in the workplace, to help someone if executive presence is their goal. A lot of people come to me because they're at a moment of transition in their lives, and it's really an honor to accompany someone through those transitions. And one of those is a career precipice. Definitely been hired because someone senses that their next role will probably be C-suite, and they want to make sure that their clothes are a help and not a hindrance to that goal, right? Um, and I just want to comment a little bit on the notion of executive presence. Executive presence is like, to me, it is somewhat subjective. I think these sort of amorphous terms are ripe for introducing bias to hiring processes, but you could probably speak more about that than me. But the way that I think about it for my clients is it's first about self-knowledge, right? I think most people want a leader who really knows who they are. And I think the way to communicate that in close is to have a strong visual identity, right? You've done some editing at this point, and your clothes are going to fit you beautifully. The hand of the fabrics will be lovely. And I think those things together are enough to connote success, right? Everybody loves a winner. They want to get the person on the team that's already winning, and that's just behavior science. We can't ignore it, right? So all of that said, I think when I lead a class on an authentic work wardrobe, my advice is pay attention to your environment, observe what seem to be the rules, and then you can break them. But start with that very clear-eyed observation about what's going on. What's going on around you.
In one of our previous conversations, we touched on the origin of suits and where that came from. Can you share with our audience where the origin of suits did originate?
There are some dotted lines to some sort of like elite socioeconomic groups when it comes to the blazer, right? There was this gentleman, Beau Brummel, I believe was his name. And in a time in England when there was incredibly little upward social mobility, befriended the king. He was known for his sartorial sense to such a degree and with such a sly humor that people were terrified to like make a fashion misstep around him. So he became a very sort of invaluable advisor. Like, he did this thing that seemed very hard to do at the time, and had this like upward mobility. And I think it's possible that he observed what was happening in France. So like fashion mostly trickled down from France at that time, and in Europe, and even to the colonies and stuff. But basically there's this French Revolution, and all of the French aristocracy are in these like pastry puff of outfits, with like satin and silk and brocade and like very expensive, sort of ostentatious garments. And that was, I think that the fashion at the courts was very coded, right? It was very like, you got to follow these norms to be at court. And I think probably somewhat wisely, at least this is my understanding, he was like, let's not, I think this class warfare is going to come to our shores, and that it is probably not wise to run around parading our wealth with these ostentatious outfits, and perhaps a more subdued look is more appropriate to the time. So it may have been a small act of self-preservation, but I believe that that is when, we went from breeches to longer pants, that we went to subdued colors and wools. Oh, in our day is a bit, in a certain way could be perceived to be associated with class or something exclusionary. That this version of it perhaps would not have been popularized without this gentleman who rose in sort of social class very improbably, and then tried to protect that class against the warfare that was happening at the time. I think it's fascinating. So I'm a geek about it, but I think it's really interesting. Back to our discussion before about cultural beauty standards, what makes us feel beautiful, what makes us feel powerful. Like even knowing some of that myself, yeah, I feel good in my Armani blazer. Like, what can I do? Like I do like a shoulder pad. I realize that that is not as much about the female form as it is about the male form. Suits were not designed originally for women's bodies. You know what I mean? Like I know all of those things, and I still feel like a badass in suits.
Thanks for that history
Sure.
lesson, Allie. Um, your perspective, how have individuals related to their clothing over the past several centuries, and how has it really changed over the past 100 years?
Oh, you fashion nerd. Yeah, that's a really interesting question. Well, I think it's probably a bit of a bell-shaped curve that's like accelerating wildly now in terms of consumption, right? So, just in the last 20 years, Americans have doubled their clothing waste. And I think what we're moving to, there's been a lot of literature on this, and thank goodness for it, because this idea of fast fashion, it used to be that, I mean, back in the day, it was like, okay, what are they wearing in France? This travels the seas and lands in this country. And then we're doing that for like 10 years, 20 years. You know what I mean? Fashion was slow to circulate. A trend was slow to circulate. And now we're in this like warp speed. I think somewhat driven by social media as well. And, the fall, the spring seasons of, the days of yore. Now there's this like hyper accelerated micro seasons. I think we're on 12 now, and I think that is what is driving that waste. And the thing that is really shocking about it is like a lot of those fast fashion garments, in addition to being like, I think, pretty harmful in their production practices, they're like not even good clothes, Doug. They're like crummy fabric, like garbage construction, synthetic, icky. And, maybe we all get a little bit of like guilt mitigated by the idea that we're like, oh, we're going to donate it to the thrift store. Well, guess what, honey? The thrift store can't sell those clothes, those beat down, crummy clothes, and like people don't want those. And so I think a lot of them then end up, so you imagine these second market workers who are like struggling to process all of this additional inventory, and then it sits on the floor, it doesn't sell, and guess what? It can't even go to textile recycling, which some things do, I think, when they don't sell at a thrift store. But all this stuff is synthetic, and a lot of it can't be recycled, right? So then it's just rotting in a landfill, taking 200 years to decompose. So it's like it's a pretty gnarly cycle. And we're all just trying to get by and like do the best that we can. But luckily, second market shopping is easier than it's ever been before, and I think people can find very near the same level of convenience, but with a much higher quality garment, and to know they've kept that garment out of the landfill. Right. So I think that there has been a crazy evolution here. And, another thing, just like, 200 years ago, a lot of the labor in this country, some of it forced, was, agricultural, right? And we were very clear on how food got to our table, right? Similarly, most people sewed, women at least, most women sewed. And they were very clear on how much effort and labor it took to make, like, you know, a waistcoat or a blouse or, any kind of undergarment, like someone that you knew probably had stitched that, you know? And so I think that it's like the farther we get from the self knowledge of all of the work that goes into this one thing, right? The easier it is for us to imagine that that $5 shirt doesn't have a lot of additional cost, right? So, yeah, I think that basically we've moved to a very trend focused, almost like a sales focused consumption. And in days of yore, I think it may have been easier for people to be really in touch with what was truly in harmony with their physical presence, the lines of their body, what they want to communicate in the world. And it was a little bit easier maybe to stay closer to that kind of aesthetic compass. Or even a moral compass, right? So sorry, that's kind of a downer of an answer, golly, but I do think that it has changed a lot, and not for the better. It's not better for the world, and it's not better for like you looking in the mirror. Like that stuff doesn't look good generally, in my experience.
Thanks for sharing that context, Allie. And this is a good segue into our next question, especially with the ethical aesthete, really focusing on that second market shopping. Share any success stories of clients whose circumstances have been made better by the organization's attitude to success and beauty.
Sure. Yeah, I feel really lucky. My clients have been very generous in looping back with me and letting me know how it's gone. And it makes me feel so amazing to like feel that anybody has experienced any kind of transformation by our work together. And one story that comes to mind because it was so well documented by this wonderful individual. I do have a lot of new mothers hire me, or mothers who have put all of their energy and attention towards their children, which is completely natural, and then suddenly wake up one day and they're like, oh yeah, like who am I in terms of like, I don't know, I've been just kind of dressing myself haphazardly, like I don't really know my identity in this way anymore. And it's really fun to go on that journey with somebody. So somebody contacted me about the challenge of being a new mother. The clothes weren't fitting, not sure if they fit the identity anymore, which, like, there's a large identity shift there, too. I mean, I think people focus on the physical changes, but like, this is a really profound spiritual, if you believe in that kind of thing, identity shift, I think, for a lot of people. And like, yeah, like it deserves to be honored in your clothes, but the problem is you might just be like barely able to throw something on in the morning. And the way I think about it is, you're going to eat during the day, right? You're probably going to eat during the day. And why not have it be something you enjoy? If it's going to take the same amount of time to eat either way, like why not have it be something that you enjoy? So even a very busy new mother um, has the opportunity to put on something that makes her feel good and that she enjoys. She's going to put something on anyway, you know, unless she's the executive of a CEO of a nudist colony or something. She will probably clothe herself in a day, right? So I think that, in this particular case, we were able to look through the closet, see what was going on. And I was like, sort of honestly terrified because I realized as we were doing it, so she accurately self-reported that a lot of it did not fit. And then there was another category of clothes that had been kind of like from clothing swaps, which is wonderful. Love a circular economy on clothes, but just sort of in a lovely way, just doing what was least wasteful, but also kind of not paying that much attention to who she was. And so we realized, like this is a very small group of clothes that really truly suit you now. And like, I hate almost to tell you that, because it's like you still have to get dressed for work every day. But I'm like, there's like there's 5 garments here that are like, that you really feel great in. And yikes, like that, I better hustle for you. That we were able to replace just about all of her clothes, an augment that allowed her to have a seasonless wardrobe of about 30 pieces, including, Armani and like some very lovely makers, things that are going to last for a long time. And she was like very clear she wanted to do the math on this. So I had the information, but I think we did it for like a little under 500, it might have been 400 or $500 for all of those garments. And then she was so dear and like showed me pictures from almost, I think it must have been about a month of her outfits. And some of them I hadn't put together for her. Like she was styling herself in a really brilliant way. I was like, that is a fabulous outfit. I love the way those two pieces work together. And it made me feel so proud, that she was able to do that on her own. And that she says she gets so many compliments at work now. She's like a fashion plate at work now. And she really feels like herself. And it just, yeah, it was a really good example of like what it can mean to somebody. And I really appreciated her looping back and like showing me, all of the great stuff she'd learned and how lovely she was looking in her day.
That was a really great success story, and appreciate you sharing that to the audience. Um, let's pivot and discuss your vision and strategy to continue bringing awareness to this untapped market. To continue building awareness to bring the ethical estate to career professionals?
Oh, heavens. I think that this is a really tricky thing because I've recently discovered that a pretty significant percentage of my clients would not have hired a stylist except for me. So it's like, now I'm realizing a part of my part of my journey as an entrepreneur is figuring out how to reach people who didn't think they wanted a stylist, and showing them that they too can have a stylist and it can be very much in keeping with their values and their budget. And yeah, I think that it's like relationship is the key, right? So, I'm earning trust as a teacher in a classroom environment. I'm most of my business, like basically all of my business so far has been client referrals, which is, deeply flattering in a way, right? Or someone who I've met in this classroom environment. So it's relationship, right? It's relationship that I think is bridging that divide for somebody who, like, from an identity sense, is like, ooh, a stylist is fancy, a stylist is for a celebrity, or like, am I visually oriented enough to do this for myself? But I think the ethical framework and my deep wish to make the most possible use of their current wardrobe that we can, I think those are the kinds of things that help someone believe that this process really can be for them too.
What motivated your business to investigate the fascinating possibility and really the challenge of providing styling services to people may have never considered hiring a stylist past?
Well, if I'm honest, I was solving my own problem first, right? So like I won't get into the details, but essentially I've been second market shopping pretty much my whole life. My mom was doing it for me when I was too little to do it for myself. But in fact, the first outfit I can think of that really brought me joy, my mom recently informed me was second market, which I loved finding out. But anyway, you know, I started doing that because I was like a sewing nerd, loved fashion history, loved costume design, and was sort of captivated by those vintage shapes and the thrill of the treasure hunt, right? So that's how it started for me. But then as my values grew, as they do as become an adult, it was actually the only way I could shop. And when I say it was the only way I could shop, I mean I bought my wedding dress second market. Um, and so it isn't really an option for me to do for me. I'm not able to help people outside of this ethical framework because I'm also not able to shop for myself that way. I would do ethical retail if someone really wanted to, but yeah. So the first thing was like I was solving my own problem, right? And I got really good at solving that problem for myself. Like I've been doing this for 25 years, and a lot of those years, people were complimenting my outfits and asking me where I got them. And I was saying, "Oh, I got this at the thrift store. Like, can you take me? Can you show me how to do this?" And that's sort of when no one's ever people have been giving me these ideas all along, right? Like, can you take me? I was like, oh, take you. And then someone was like, you should charge people for this. I'm like, oh. And it hadn't occurred to me ever to monetize what I was doing for myself, right? And then I realized, oh, people are asking me this because this is they have the same problem I do, right? Or they like the thrill of the hunt too, or whatever. And so it took me many years to really imagine how I could monetize it and really make a profitable business out of it. And yeah, but that was that was how it started. I started because I had a problem I needed solving. Now I paid to solve it for other people, which is really fun. I love doing it.
For our audience listening, definitely check out the Ethical Esthete. In one of our previous conversations with Allie, she shared that my color palette is deep winter, so really focusing on reds, navies, and burgundies. So for those listening, ask yourself, you know what color palette looks good on you?
Color is a fun one because that does not have to be, an expensive investment in any way, but wearing the right colors on you makes such a difference. Like you look more rested, you look more vibrant. It just makes everything work better somehow. So I really think that's an easy one that people should get clear on.
It really does. How can individuals get involved and support you and your mission at the Ethical Esthete?
Ah, what a nice question. Well, I suppose I would ask people to consider how I can support them, you know? Um, Like, certainly, if you're part of a group or a business that you think would enjoy a class on authentic work wardrobe, my style, big surprise from my time as like an educator and community engagement specialist, is very community engaged. It's very interactive and lively and fun. And it's good team building, I think. And it's good to talk about these things in an intentional way. I think it makes some more space for people. So, feel free to get in touch if you have if you see some opportunity for that in the groups and activities you're a part of. And I would also just encourage people, don't let the word stylist put you off. People hire me from all walks of life, and I am saying that partly because I think it was very normal for us to get complacent about our wardrobes in the pandemic. Um, and, for a lot of us, it's no longer possible to do a blazer on top and sweatpants on the bottom, like, or our size changed during the pandemic. And a lot of our clothes don't fit anymore. And like, these are very normal pain points. And what I would really like for people is to not have to settle, you know, to not have to settle in any way. You can absolutely have a wardrobe that you feel great in, that makes it easy and fun and fast to get dressed in the morning, that brings you joy and ease, like in your heart as well. And, behavior science says you have 7 seconds to make a first impression. My goodness, what information are people getting from you in 7 seconds? Some of it is from your clothes, right? And so I would just never want anybody to be hindered by that. I would always want their clothes to be, the exclamation point on an already beautiful sentence, but not to be something that holds them back in any way. So, yeah, I would just urge people to know that they deserve to feel their best. They really do. And to have it honor their whole selves. I think it's really important.
As we can hear, Allie, is there anything you'd like to share or talk about in terms of the work you're doing today at the Ethical Estate?
No, I think we covered a lot of ground. I think um, I really want to take time to thank you, Doug. Um, I feel like you are incredibly generous and you deeply understand an entrepreneur's journey. And I know that you mentor many people and make yourself available to many people. And you are really doing a meaningful service to the world with Halo. And I really believe in you. And I would just turn it around for a second and encourage other people that if they have any hiring needs or they envision uh, a new role for themselves, to really deeply consider reaching out to Doug and the nice folks at Halo, because I do have the firsthand experience of being placed in a role because of Doug. And I also have the experience now of being a peer and sort of solidarity buddy as a fellow CEO. And I can tell you that he is the nicest, most generous, strategic, all of the things you could want in a partner in your business life. You can find them with Doug. So I would just really encourage people to learn about Halo and see if they could be a good fit.
Thank you for those kind words, Allie, and really great chatting with you today. And I'll continue to keep cheering you on from the sidelines.
Thank you so much.